Now, in the United States, a federal grand jury has indicted the country's former national security advisor, John Bolton, over his handling of classified material. Bolton served during Donald Trump's first presidential term and is charged with retaining national defense information. This is the third time in recent weeks that the U.S. Justice Department has filed criminal charges against a former member of Trump's administration turned critic.
President Donald Trump's opinion of his former national security advisor shifted from this.
He's highly respected by everybody in this room.
To this.
I think he's a bad guy. Yeah, he's a bad guy.
John Bolton was charged on 18 counts for allegedly storing classified information at home, sharing classified intelligence with relatives, and using a private email address to transmit top-secret information. Bolton rejects the allegations. The indictment is the latest chapter in a series of investigations that go back to 2020, when the Justice Department tried to prevent Bolton from publishing his memoir, The Room Where It Happened. In the book, the veteran diplomat, who became known as a foreign policy hardliner, harshly criticizes Trump, calling him uninformed and manipulable. The initial investigation fizzled out, but was revived under the Biden administration with new evidence. It later gained momentum under Trump's current term with a raid at Bolton's home in Maryland in August, and now the indictment. When asked about the charges against Bolton, President Trump appeared surprised.
I didn't know that. You told me for the first time, but I think he's, a bad person. I think he's a bad guy. Yeah, he's a bad guy. It's too bad, but it's the way it goes.
And Bolton is not the only Trump critic to have been charged recently. In late September, former FBI Director James Comey was also indicted, accused of making false statements to a Senate Judiciary Committee in 2020 over a classified information leak. Comey pleaded not guilty in the court hearing and denies any wrongdoing.
And I'm innocent.
His trial is set to take place in early January 2026. Comey's lawyers argue these indictments constitute selective prosecution and may signal a broader revenge campaign by Trump aimed at political opponents.
Andrew Gillespie is an associate professor of political science at Emory University. Andrew, welcome to the show. John Bolton says he's the latest target of the Trump administration, that this is political revenge. Do you think he's right?
Well, the facts pattern in this case, as it's presented in the indictment and as will be expressed during the trial, may look a little bit different from the previous two indictments that have come down in the last few days. So what makes the Bolton case different from the Comey case and from the James case? One is just the charges that are involved, and then actually also who was involved in the case and the fact pattern that's established. It is very clear that the common thread between all of these people is that they are critics of Donald Trump and have spoken out very publicly about what they disagreed with Donald Trump. It's also very clear that Donald Trump wanted them to be investigated so that there could be prosecutions brought against them. But the difference that I would argue between what we have seen so far in these cases and the allegations that are being brought, and I think it's important to remember that all of these people are presumed innocent until proven guilty, is that if we look at the charges in the Comey case, it's that he lied under oath to Congress because there might be some conflicting testimony between him and a subordinate in a congressional testimony. If we look at the Letitia James case, they're going to have to prove intent. This is what the legal experts say, that she intentionally, committed fraud by declaring a house that she didn't live in as a primary residence to be a primary residence. What is being alleged here in the Bolton case is that John Bolton transcribed classified information and then put it in private emails on an unsecured network that he sent to family members who didn't have security clearances. So this is a much different charge. It's a more serious charge, I would argue. And I think, the larger issues, at this case, I think it should also be noted that this investigation of Bolton actually started during the Biden administration. So a lot of President Trump's rhetoric would suggest that Bolton was a target because he didn't like some of the things that he was saying about him. But the fact pattern of this case looks different.
Andrea, weren't investigators already aware of much of this information? After all, this is about John Bolton's book in which he talked about his time in the White House. And I believe that, in fact, he was asked by the administration, I forget if it was Trump or Biden, to essentially remove certain sections of his book, which he then did. Is this not then coming back to something that, as Bolton says, was already actually addressed years ago?
Well, that will have to be adjudicated in court. I think the larger issue of the case is it's very customary if you work for the federal government and if you write a book about the government that you have to get it cleared first to make sure that you aren't revealing any classified information. So that's actually pretty standard. Everybody would have to go through that type of process. But I think the larger issue is that how did Biden or how did Bolton remember all of this information? Was he just pulling this off of memory or was he pulling this off of notes? And, he may try to make the argument here that it wasn't classified if he was writing it down in his own notes. But I think the government's case here is that if he was transcribing confidential, top secret government information, and he was, committing it to pen and then committing it to email and sending it through unsecured networks to who news reports are saying, persons 1 and 2 in the indictment are his wife and his daughter, then that actually constitutes a type of security breach. And that in and of itself would be something that is illegal.
Right. Andre, you note that some of this investigation took place during the Biden administration, then continuing now during the new Trump administration. Would this case have made it to this point, a federal grand jury indictment, without Trump's dislike of Bolton? How do you see it?
So again, this is where we do see some differences in terms of who is involved in this case. So we know that in the Comey case and in the Letitia James case, these are being prosecuted out of the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Eastern District of Virginia. And in this instance, the person who was the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia declined to bring cases. And so as a result, this person was removed from office. And then a Trump loyalist was put into the office who was willing to actually proceed with trying to get the grand jury indictment. In this Bolton case, there are staff attorneys who are involved in this case, which suggests that not just the longevity of the case, but also that there was buy-in amongst the staff attorneys who have some institutional knowledge of the case.
All right.
So we don't have any evidence that there were staff attorneys who were expressing qualms about bringing the case, and they still didn't mind participating in the case. And so that may also suggest that even if this case is politically motivated, that there also might be more substance to the case.
Okay, Andre, we'll have to leave it there. Andre Gillespie, Emory University in Atlanta. Thanks so much.
Thank you.